Wow, what a gift this could be for Philadelphia as the perfect player might be falling into the Sixers' laps. The San Antonio Spurs are reportedly parting ways with a young player who really fits the mold of the exact type of skill set and the exact type of player the Sixers could use. That's Jeremy Sochan. We'll talk about it here on today's show. Real quick, before we do, we'll be live for another watch party here on the channel on this Wednesday, February 11th, in just a couple of hours by the time you see this. Tip-off is at 7:30 Eastern between the Sixers and the Knicks on ESPN. We'll be live about 15 minutes before that game gets underway. So if you're checking it out on Wednesday, tune in if the game is happening while you're watching the show. If you're watching this the day after, plenty more watch parties to come and more coverage all throughout the year. So I encourage you to hit that sub button. Shams Charania reporting just moments ago. The San Antonio Spurs and former Jeremy Sochan have agreed on his release to allow the 2023 All-Rookie team member to become a free agent, sources tell ESPN. Sochan is expected to decide among multiple interested teams, and it's no surprise that there are many teams who will be looking for his services, again, as a young player who was a former top pick and really fallen out of way with San Antonio, especially this season. Just 4 points, 2.5 rebounds, really not playing a whole lot of minutes for the Spurs. Despite their great success, they've kind of been able to find a way to be really good without him. So it's been rumored for a few weeks now. Could they trade him? Could they release him? They want to release him here in February. And so now if you're the Sixers, you have a couple open roster spots. You're looking at a player like Sochan and thinking to yourself, should we look towards him as a new addition to this buyout market, if you will, which we've been talking about really all week, as a potential player to fill one of those voids. Look, the first few years of his career were decent. He was never, looked at as a player that was really going to be, top in that Spurs organization. But numbers he's put up his first few years, 11 and 6 pretty much every year, looking pretty decent. Never a guy that was really able to shoot it from outside, and that'll be a main concern for him moving forward, but he can defend multiple positions. He's a good rebounder, has good size as well, and again, is still young. So I think the Sixers really should be all over this right now. You think about where Philadelphia is at with their roster after the Paul George suspension in particular. They need more defense on the wing, and they need more versatile defenders in general. That's exactly what Sochan is, right? Regardless of what the offense is, maybe it never comes along. It might not, but again, he is still just 22 years old. Defensively, he is versatile. He can really guard 1 through 5, and Philadelphia really could use that again with those two roster spots. So, kind of look at how things are shaking up right now. Obviously, Paul George still counts against the players on the roster. Barlow was signed to that standard deal. You have Beauchamp and Walker on those two ways. Have a couple 10 days in Baldwin and Bassey, but those can be released at any moment, and those should be running up pretty soon. So you could see a world where, these forwards you have, Barlow is kind of your bigger body athlete, rebounder. Watford can handle the rock a little bit. But especially in that game against Portland on Monday, and we'll see what happens here against the Knicks on Wednesday, with no Paul George, the Sixers' wing defense and on-ball defense is awful. And Sochan can certainly help in that regard. Again, he was a 9th overall pick back in the 2022 NBA draft out of Baylor, so not that long ago, that the San Antonio Spurs invested pretty heavily into him. And that year, he made all-rookie second team after a productive rookie season. So started off his career, was a little bit promising, right? But then really this season and towards last year, as well as he dealt with some injuries, just fell out of that rotation. The lack of a three-point shot and the lack of spacing really did hurt him and never quite developed as the ball handler, that kind of point forward, if you will, that they kind of thought he would be. But again, just 22 years old. He'll turn 23 in May. We've seen players like this, they can take a while to develop and carve out their role. And maybe a change of scenery could be good for somebody like Jeremy Sochan. We talked about that with Dalen Terry, who, look, not a good basketball player, but you bring him into Philadelphia on this two-way, you never know what a change of scenery and a change of coaching will do for someone. Now, I will say, there's a reason the Spurs let him go. We talked about the lack of shooting, the lack of an offensive game in general, and take a look at the Spurs net ratings this season when Jeremy Sochan is on the court. Very little minutes compared to when he's off, 358 minutes. Spurs at a minus 8.6 net rating. When he's off the floor, significantly better, plus 9.2. That's like a 17-point swing when Sochan was not on the floor for them this year. It was just clear he was not good enough to be in their rotation, as the Spurs are obviously a competing team out there in the West. So, look, he has his drawbacks, of course, especially as an offensive player, and maybe he's just not good, right? There is a chance that Sochan just is not a good basketball player, despite being young, despite being a former top 10 pick. But look, it's February 11th. You have 2 open roster spots. It's not often you get players that are this intriguing with his kind of skill set that become available at this point in the season. Some of the other names we've been talking about, like, are older vets who you don't even know what they have left in the tank, right? Alonzo Ball, Haywood Highsmith could be nice, right? Chris Paul's name is being thrown out there. Like, it's a lot of guys that who knows what they are at this point in their career, and they're older, right? So why not just take a chance on Sochan? If it doesn't work out, and I tweeted this out, you sign him, he sucks. Who really cares? You picked him up in February, back into the rotation guy. Maybe he makes an impact, maybe he doesn't, but you didn't really give up anything to get him, right? So take the swing, see if you can get somebody with the skill set that you really need on this team. Maybe he makes an impact on the defensive side of the ball. It would make a whole lot of sense. What say you, though? Should the Sixers go out and try to sign Jeremy Sochan? He, of course, will have multiple suitors, as Charania did mention. So even if Philly wants him, might have to compete with some other teams. We'll see where Sochan wants to go. But I think there's a world where he plays a pretty significant role here in Philadelphia, which is what he's probably looking for to rebuild his value. As for sign, P for pass, let me know down in the comments section. Now, coming up next, we'll talk about another player the Sixers could sign that's already in-house that could help fill up one of their 2 remaining roster spots. But first, the Tyrese Maxey VJ Edgecomb Slam t-shirts are selling out fast. All of the black t-shirts have already sold out in all sizes, but the white t-shirts do still have sizes available in all sizes right now at chatsports.com/SixersSlam, chatsports.com/SixersSlam. Get your Maxey VJ Edgecomb Slam shirt while you can. Mine just came in the mail. Got to rock that here on the show soon. Take advantage, though. Again, these items are going fast. So the other player we're talking about here on the show, MarJon Beauchamp, who, of course, Philadelphia signed to a 2-way deal not too long ago, and with 2 roster spots open, even if they do decide to sign Jeremy Sochan, could you look to also elevate MarJon Beauchamp? Because he had a pretty solid debut against Portland on Monday. Now, obviously, Philadelphia got rocked in the third quarter of that game, and a lot of his production did come down the stretch when the game was out of hand. But still, to put up 10, 4, and 4 with 3 steals, I was most impressed by his passing ability, right? A player who has always been a talented scorer, but all those other aspects of the game really have never been able to come along for him. Also, the 3 steals as well. If he can show that he can do these kind of things more consistently in actual games for Philadelphia, there's a world where you could consider elevating him because, again, the Sixers' biggest needs right now, you need a backup guard, a true backup point guard, because I cannot watch Kyle Lowry play anymore this year. Him getting 18 minutes on Monday is just a joke. But you do need more wings, more wing defense, right, and more length on that wing. And Beauchamp can give you that at 6'7", about 200 pounds. So we'll see if the offense can kind of come along. And obviously he has to do it for more than one game, right? I want to see him consistently put together some decent performances. But maybe you are looking at 2 players here you could bring in if you're Philadelphia. And I will say, when I look at the roster, I mentioned earlier, I think you need another guard on this team because you have Maxey, you have Edgecomb, you have Quentin Grimes. But we saw, like on Monday, when Grimes was out with an illness, I'm pretty sure he's missing tonight's game again against the Knicks, you just can't have Kyle Lowry out there on the floor when things matter. Even when Grimes is in there, he's not really a true primary ball handler. So I don't think you sign both of these guys. Even though they're not really redundant in skill set, they are redundant in terms of the minutes they'd be eating up at the forward spot, and obviously neither of them are really true ball handlers. So I think you sign one of these guys and then maybe go out and look to sign another guard, but who knows? We'll see what Daryl Morey decides to do. I bet, though, that one of these 2 guys is on the Sixers roster here in the next couple of weeks. Should the Sixers sign MarJon Beauchamp to a standard deal, obviously on the 2-way contract right now? Should they pick him up for the rest of the year like they did with Dominic Barlow? Give me a yes or no down in the comment section. Now, of course, when we're talking about filling this roster, if they do sign one or both of those guys, what happens to Jabari Walker? He was a guy who for a while we thought was going to be converted from the 2-way to the standard deal along with Dominic Barlow, but the past few weeks, really the past month, Barlow hasn't really been playing, or Walker, I should say, hasn't really been playing. Obviously, his 2-way days are now up, so if the Sixers want to play him, they have to sign him to a standard deal. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Jabari Walker play again for Philadelphia. I think his lack of shooting and really the fact that Dominic Barlow kind of took those minutes and an opportunity from him, maybe Philadelphia goes in a different direction. Again, I'm kind of shocked. He was good early in the year, but the way it's been as of right now, I do not think Jabari Walker ends up getting a standard deal. Could get replaced by one of the guys we mentioned here on today's show. One last reminder to go ahead and hit that sub button if you want Sixers news, rumors, analysis, and a whole lot more all year long. We are your one-stop shop, so go ahead and hit that sub button, and we'll see you next time right here on 76ers Now.